the Jackson family first saw the house on the hill, it was late summer. The grass around the porch had grown wild, brushing against the bottom steps, and the wind carried the smell of pine and old rain. To Karen Jackson, it looked peaceful, a quiet place to start over. Her husband Tom agreed, even though the realtor had warned them the property had been empty for almost 20 years. The house itself was beautiful in a worn way. 3 stories tall, white paint peeling at the edges, and a wraparound porch that looked out over the valley. From the top bedroom window you could see the road winding between the trees. It had that lonely charm old American houses often carried, something that made you feel both safe and watched at the same time. They moved in with their 2 kids, Emily, 12, and Ben, 8. The first few nights were uneventful. Karen unpacked boxes in the kitchen while Tom fixed the old heater in the basement. The kids explored the attic and found an old chest filled with faded photographs, families standing stiffly in black and white, none of them smiling. Emily noticed that in every photo there was a tall man in the background. He was never facing the camera, just standing near a window or a doorway. They thought it was funny at first, until Ben said quietly that he didn't think the man was part of the family. On the 3rd night, Karen woke up to the sound of footsteps above their room. She shook Tom awake, thinking maybe one of the kids was up there. But when Tom checked, both children were asleep, and the attic door was locked from the inside. He told her old houses made noises, wood settling, pipes creaking, that sort of thing. But Karen couldn't shake the feeling that someone had walked across the floor directly above her bed. By October, the air had turned colder, and the house started to feel different. Karen noticed strange drafts in the hallways even when all the windows were shut. The dog, a golden retriever named Daisy, refused to go near the stairs after dark. She'd stand there, staring up, her fur bristling, growling at something unseen. Emily began to have nightmares. She told her mother she kept seeing a man standing at the end of her bed, watching her. His head was tilted slightly, and his eyes looked wrong and not angry or kind, just empty. When Karen went to comfort her, the room always felt a few degrees colder. The old photographs Emily had found were still in her drawer. But one night, Karen noticed something that made her skin crawl. The tall man in the background seemed closer in one of the pictures than before. Tom didn't want to hear about it. He worked long hours at the mill and came home too tired for ghost stories. He believed in things you could touch, measure, fix. But even he couldn't ignore the night the basement door slammed on its own. He had been down there checking the furnace when it happened. Karen heard him shouting, not in fear but anger, as he tried to open the door. It was jammed tight. When she finally forced it open, Tom stood at the bottom of the stairs, pale and shaking. He said someone had whispered behind him. Just one word, stay. After that, Tom stopped going into the basement. It was Emily who found out the truth. She'd been doing a school project on local history and decided to research their house. At the library, she asked the clerk if any old records existed for the property. The woman's face changed when Emily gave the address. "You're living in the Bowman place?" she asked. When Emily nodded, the woman quietly led her to a dusty cabinet in the back. The file was thin, only a few yellowed papers and a newspaper clipping. The article was from 1952, "Local family found dead in home on hill." The headline made Emily's stomach twist. According to the report, the Bowmans had lived there, husband, wife, and 2 daughters. One winter morning, the postman noticed the house was unusually quiet. He went inside and found all 4 bodies in the parlor. The coroner ruled it a murder-suicide, but neighbors swore they'd seen lights in the windows weeks after the deaths. The article mentioned something odd. The oldest daughter's body was found upstairs facing the corner, like she'd been hiding. Emily showed the article to her parents that night. Tom folded it up and said firmly, "That was 70 years ago. It's got nothing to do with us." But Karen couldn't let it go. She found herself replaying every strange noise, every flicker of light in the hallway. That evening, when she was washing dishes, she saw movement in the reflection of the window, a shape behind her. She turned fast, heart pounding. No one was there. When she looked back at the glass, the shape was still there, standing in the reflection but not in the room. The plate slipped from her hand and shattered in the sink. November came with endless rain. The sky hung low and gray and the hill road turned to mud. The Jacksons talked about leaving, but Tom said they couldn't afford to move again so soon. He promised to call a contractor to check the wiring, blaming the lights and noises on bad circuits. That Friday, a storm rolled in. The wind howled across the valley, rattling the shutters. Around midnight, the power went out. Karen lit candles and told the kids to sleep in her room for the night. Tom went downstairs to check the breaker box with a flashlight. He never made it back up. They heard him call once, sharp, panicked, then silence. Karen ran to the stairs, shining her phone's light down into the dark. "Tom?" she called. Something moved in the shadows. Slow, deliberate steps on the wooden floor below. When the beam of her light caught the bottom of the stairs, she froze. There was a man standing there, tall, wearing old dark clothes. His head tilted just slightly, eyes black where they should have been white. He was smiling, but the smile didn't move his face, just stretched across it like it was painted on. Karen grabbed her children and slammed the bedroom door. She dialed 911, but the call wouldn't go through. No signal. Outside, thunder shook the windows. Then came the knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks on the door. "Please," Emily whispered, clutching her mother's arm. "He's coming up the stairs." The knocking stopped. Silence. For a long moment, the only sound was the storm outside. Then something scraped across the floor and dragging footsteps, and the candle nearest the door flickered out. Karen held her children close and whispered a prayer. When the door handle began to turn, she screamed. By morning, the storm had passed. Deputy Morales from the county sheriff's office arrived after neighbors reported the power lines down. The first thing he noticed was the open front door, swinging gently in the breeze. Inside, the house was silent. Water had leaked in through the windows, pooling on the warped wooden floor. They found Tom's body in the basement near the furnace. There were no signs of struggle, no injuries. It looked as if he'd simply stopped breathing. Upstairs, they found Karen and the children in the master bedroom. The scene wasn't strange. The door was locked from the inside, but all 3 were lying perfectly still, eyes open, expressions peaceful, as if they'd fallen asleep in the middle of a conversation. The medical examiner couldn't find a cause of death. No poison, no suffocation, nothing. It was written off as carbon monoxide, though the levels in the house didn't support that. The official report simply called it unexplained. After the funerals, the house went up for sale again. Months passed before anyone dared to look at it. Then a new family came along, the Harrisons. They were young, full of hope, and the price was too good to ignore. The real estate agent handed them the keys and said, "It's a lovely home. Just needs some life back in it." As they drove up the hill, their little girl pointed to the attic window. "Who's that?" she asked. Her mother smiled. "No one, sweetheart. It's empty." But the girl kept staring, eyes wide. Later that night, when the Harrisons carried the last box through the door, the house seemed to sigh, wood shifting, air settling. From somewhere upstairs came the faint sound of footsteps, soft and slow, crossing the floor. And if you stood outside on the hill and looked up at the house just then, you'd swear you could see 4 shapes in the window. A man, a woman, and 2 children, standing together, waiting for the next family to come home.